How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com, and today I want to talk about using your imagination to help you stop drinking. Now, this is not some woo-woo thing, and I'm not trying to tell you that you can use your imagination and everything else is going to be all right. I don't think it works like that. You've got to mix this thing in with action, with thinking, and trying to think out a plan yourself, plan what you're going to do, and from there you can use your imagination in certain aspects of this, right? Especially when you're dealing with so-called cravings and your long-term planning, especially, if you're, there's a few different areas that I want to talk about, really. So use your imagination to help you to stop drinking. When you use your imagination in this way, the possibilities are infinite. You've got so many different possibilities. You'll never be able to do everything that you can imagine. Not because you can't do them, but because you won't have the time to do them. As I said at the beginning, this is not some form of woo-woo. It's not like a magic charm that's going to really release you from alcohol and you never look back and all that kind of stuff. Something like The Secret. I don't know if you've read the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. There's some great stuff in that, but the underlying basis of it, I think, is I don't know if I'm misunderstanding it. I think what they're saying is that you can whatever you think you can get in the real life just by thinking about it. I don't think that's I think there's a bit more to it than that, but anyway, diverging away from the point here. You use your imagination every day, right? Whether that's you're getting dressed for work, you're cooking the dinner, whatever you're doing in life, you're using your mind. You have to think about these things in your brain before they actually come out into the real world. A thought always precedes an action. So the point here is that you should direct your imagination and direct your thoughts. A lot of this stuff goes on below the surface, so you're not aware of it happening, although it is happening. When I'm out walking here, I know where I'm going because I can picture it in my head, right? I know that cobwebs, your imagination is the starting point for everything, whether it's your nutrition, your exercise, starting a new job, starting the day, finishing the day, any of those things. We're talking about everything that you do. Mostly everything that you do starts off in your imagination, and it's your choice about which way you direct these thoughts and this imagination, right? Now, this is another one of those areas where it takes time for you to build up the awareness, first of all, of what you're thinking, to bring these thoughts into your conscious mind and to actually think, well, what am I visualizing in my head? What am I imagining in my head at this particular moment? And it takes time to figure out which are the positives and which are the negatives, and then how are you going to deal with that? You've got to have a positive spin to put on things in order to deal with the negatives, right? So when you find the negative in your mind, you've got to be able to when you find a negative in your mind, you've got to be able to put a positive spin on it. So, often times, you figure out what the negative part of it is, but you need to sort of put something positive onto it straight away, so you'll get better and better with this over time once you know what's happening and how you're progressing through this, so I mean, what I'm saying basically is, if you've got a choice between thinking positively, thinking positive images, creating positive images, or negative images, why the fuck wouldn't you create positive images, And it is your choice at the end of the day. This all comes down, it's your brain, and just as your brain can manipulate you on occasion, right, and during these occasions, especially when these things are going underneath and it's habitual thinking that's going on all the time, that you're used to thinking in a certain way about a certain thing, certain place in your life, or a certain person, or a certain time, I used to know this guy who just hated Christmas, and I used to say to him, what do you not like about Christmas? I say all this bullshit and people giving each other presents and it's all false, and the Christmas carols and everyone pretending to be happy and stuff like that, and that was his interpretation of the whole thing, and it was just so sad because there was no need for it, I have Christmas in my own way. I mean, I look at Christmas as being sort of a break for the winter, it breaks up the winter, gives me a chance to get together with my family and have fun and have a laugh and play some games that you just wouldn't play. I mean, who plays charades at any other time of the year, but you do stupid stuff like that at Christmas, and it's Jesus, cobwebs. You do stupid stuff like that at Christmas, and you eat too much, and that's one thing that I've changed about Christmas, is we don't spend lots of money on Christmas presents anymore, because most of the time it's just it's a waste of time. It's just gathering stuff, and now we sort of put the money towards something that we use during the year, and and that's not everyone's cup of tea. We haven't got any kids anymore. Sean always comes over for Christmas, and we speak to family. We speak to family in Holland, and speak to family back in the UK. We get together here, and that's, for me, is Christmas. And it could be called anything else. I'm not a religious person anymore, so for me it could be called anything. I'm more akin to the sort of what do you call it is coming up now with my brain's sort of gone on this one, to the solstices, the winter solstice and the summer solstice, because there's a personal meaning for me. It's the time of the year when it's the longest day of the year or the shortest day of the year, so it's like a turning point in a physical thing, so I'd be quite happy to do a Christmas Day on that day, I'd be quite happy to celebrate the winter solstice, so long as the rest of it was there. I know I'm meandering here, but this is a meandering path that sort of goes all over the top of this side of this mountain, so it all depends on how you look at things, if you look at things in a negative way, same thing, if you're imagining things in a negative way, then that's what they're going to be. What you focus on is what you get. What you focus on expands. If you focus on the negative, then the negative will expand. Just a fact of life, eh? So when you're quitting drinking, right, this is where I think the biggest power of using your imagination comes in. You can use this in your past, your present, your future, right? So for your past, there's not much that you can do about your past drinking, right? What you've done in the past, what you've said in the past while you were drunk, injuries that you've caused to yourself or other people, how much you've drunk, how much money you've spent on alcohol, you know, it's all gone. But you can use your imagination to change how you think about the past, right? You can think about it just in a completely different way. Not telling you to alter the facts are the facts, but the facts have always got a certain colouring to them, you know. So instead of looking at the past with regret or with shame or, you know, whatever, you know, negative emotion, you just put a positive emotion on it and you say, well, you know, I am where I am today because of what I've done in my own past, and I'm going to be where I am tomorrow because of the things that I've done in the past, you know. You know, the people in your life are there because of who you are, what you've done in the past. You know, your family are there, for whatever reason, right? But your children, you know, I met my wife, Angie, in a bar in England, and through that my son came around, you know. Need I say more? So you have to look at the positives, you know. You can't change the past, so why would you even look at it like it's something bad, you know? Certainly learn from it, you know. Say, well, I made mistakes, but that's all they are, mistakes. So you just go again, you start doing retakes. And everybody makes mistakes, so, you know, anybody on this planet, if they say they haven't made mistakes, they're lying their arses off, you know. There's no two ways about that, because everyone does, you know. You can use your imagination with your present by saying, well, this is the situation I'm in. What can I do at this present moment, right? You can use it to your present imagination to think about rehearsals, what you're going to do in the future, you know, in the near future. So you can use your imagination to think about the present, you know, or the very near future. So when you quit drinking, you can sort of think about all the situations that you might find yourself in the near future, you know, having to say no to drinks, what you're going to do to relax, all that kind of stuff, you know. And you can rehearse those things in your head, you know. You can say to yourself, well, when this happens to me, I'm going to do that, right? When X happens, I'm going to do Y. So when somebody says to me, do you want a drink there, you know, have a drink, come on, why are you not drinking? What, you've no problem, come on, you know, one's not going to hurt you and all that kind of stuff. You can say, no, I don't want to drink, you know, I'm drinking water. Or you can say, no, I'm driving, or I'm taking medication. Whatever you want to say, you know, it makes no difference, all this kind of stuff. I'm just saying, to have these answers prepared in advance, you use your imagination to figure these out. And in the long term, you use your imagination to figure out where you want to be, what you want to be doing in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, 5 years, 10 years, all that kind of stuff, you know. And I don't mean just goals. I mean that's an important part of the whole process. Not looking back, looking forwards, you know. Keeping your focus where you want to go instead of where you've come from, right? It's a really important part of the whole process. But I'm talking about, you know, using your imagination and seeing yourself in what you would think of now as difficult situations, right? You know, where everyone else is drinking around you and you're not, you're holding a glass of water or a glass of orange juice or that kind of thing. So put yourself into those positions a year from now and see yourself with great confidence, right? See yourself with, you know, you're holding that glass of water and you don't care, you know, you've got pride in yourself because you're the one that's looking after yourself. You're looking after your body, you're looking after your family. You're not, you know, passing down this bullshit to your kids, you know, that taking any drugs like this, you know, is a good thing to do. You know, just use visualization. Be there in that situation, right? See yourself, feel the pride that you've got for yourself, right? Feel what it's like to be there, see everything in that situation, you know, what smells are there, you know, what can you hear, who's there, what are they saying to you, you know, and picture people saying to you, geez, you know, like a year, yeah, you know, like you haven't touched a drop, you look really good, you know, it's suiting you well, you know, and feel good about all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying, the power of imagination. You can use imagination for all sorts of stuff. You know, I've used this in just so many different areas of my life. I've used it to do those, you know, to look at my past in a different kind of a way. You know, at the beginning I was thinking to myself that I was just I was a bad father for doing all the stuff that I for drinking in front of my son and for acting drunk in front of him and all that kind of stuff. But you know, it's just the way it was. So I can sort of use my imagination to sort of look back and just see who he is now as a man. You know, he's 25 this year, and you know, he's such a good person, you know. And I'm very biased because he is my son, but you know, I completely love him to bits. It's just, you know, as a person, he's such a nice guy, you know. There's not a bad bone in his body, and what I'm doing now is just changing the way he is. It's changing the way he thinks about alcohol, and you know, it's never too late. For my present stuff, I always sort of try and visualize myself doing things now, you know. If I need to put myself into a situation where before I would be afraid outside of my comfort zone or any of that kind of stuff, now I can sort of use and sit down and take 5 or 10 minutes before I go into the situation and imagine it. The spiders on me now, the spiders' webs, and I can imagine those situations in a positive way, and me getting a positive outcome, and it always helps, you know. I mean, it doesn't stop you from being scared, you know. Fear is a good thing, you know. If you didn't have fear of these things, you wouldn't be human, you know. But it's a good thing to have your imagination that you can do this, and mental rehearsal is a great tool to have. And for the future, I'm always thinking about what I'm going to be doing, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I mean, I'm 50 this week, and I'm sort of still thinking what I'm going to be like on my 100th birthday, you know. So hopefully I get there. Look, that's it for today. Have a great day. Use your imagination wisely. It's there, it's a tool for you to use. It's the best tool that you've got in your whole toolbox, your mind, and what you can do with it. It's a powerful weapon, you know. So keep the alcohol out of your mouth, stay safe, and until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery. Onwards and upwards.